Welcome to Off the Field, the Business of Sport podcast at Manor College. Purpose of these sessions is to educate and inspire students looking to work into the world of sports. Today, we've got a great panel, and I'm really excited to introduce these next two gentlemen. We've got Dan Hauser, who is a sports industry legend. Dan's worked in the NBA for over 30 years for the Detroit Pistons and Philadelphia Sixers. And joining Dan is a good friend of mine, TJ Smink, who is a manager of premium seating at the Philadelphia Union. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so why don't we first start off? Maybe I'll ask Dan first. Dan, why don't you tell some folks about your background? I mean, it's amazing that you've worked, in sports this long, and in particular in just the NBA and primarily with the Pistons. So tell everybody a little bit about your background.
Well, first of all, I went to graduated from Wisconsin-Stevens Point, which is a state university system college in Wisconsin, and with my degree in business education. And then I student taught and decided I didn't want to do it. It wasn't for me. So I went to grad school at Ohio University, which is pretty much regarded as the best in the country. I'm flattered to be able to say that. It's a great program. And then after that, from there, I had some opportunities as far as internships, and I had mine with the Detroit Pistons. So selected from them. And from that point, that was all the way back to 1977, and was with them for 34 seasons. Saw a lot of ups and a lot of downs. My first coach, you will never guess, was Dick Vitale. So kind of dating myself. He's hopefully he's I heard he had cancer. I don't know if that's, I assume that's.
Yeah, I saw that.
I wish him all the best and pray for him. So, and then was fortunate to be part of the organization through 3 NBA championships. And we had a lot of down years. We also had a lot of up years. So I was blessed. And then when I got done there after 34 years, went to work with the Sixers. Unfortunately, I brought the bad part with the team with me. And we did not have a lot of success on the floor, but we had a great group of guys and gals. And I think we kind of built the franchise as far as set the tone. And then I've since retired. Enjoying the good life. So, but it was a wonderful career, one that I, recommend to anybody that has an interest in sports. And, both of you gentlemen have been part of it also. I look forward to going to work every day, and don't really think I ever went to work. And if a person can say that, you're pretty fortunate. So and here I am today. So after 38 years in the business, a lot of great times and some struggles at times too with teams, especially, but it was a great run. So I'm blessed.
Okay, and so we've got and this is why I was really excited for this group this week, because we've got Dan on one spectrum having a 38-year career in the NBA. And then we've got TJ joining us, who is, fairly new and just starting his career and really developing. So TJ, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I'm definitely on the newer side compared to Dan, but we do have a lot of similarities. So I went to Shippensburg University in South Central Pennsylvania, graduated there with a marketing degree. But in my time there, I actually interned with the Philadelphia Union back in 2016. As an event operations intern. So from there, made sure that I made as many connections as I could in the front office. This way they knew who I was when I was coming out of school. And I was fortunate enough to place very well in a intern ticket sales competition. And because of that, they decided to offer me a job in inside sales with essentially their second inside sales class ever. But from there, I've been, just doing what I can to show my worth and sell as much as I possibly can to then continue climbing the ranks. So I've been with the union officially in a paid role for about four years and I guess 11 months now. So it's been a fun ride.
Okay, and a congratulations is in order. I know you just got promoted to as a manager of now premium seating. So how's that
Thank
going
you.
for you?
It's going good. It's going good. Yeah, I mean, it's not all too different than what I was doing. For me with premium seating, I'm just reaching out to companies around the area and entertaining their top prospects, clients, and employees with the #1 fan experience in Philadelphia, as voted on by JD Power Associates. So I need to make sure I throw that in there. But no, it's been a great time. Now it's more so just a focus on filling the suite level, more so than what I was in my previous role.
Okay. And Dan, you primarily worked on the corporate side, right? So you were in corporate partnerships and in corporate sales. Is that sort of where you, with the majority of your tenure at the Pistons and Sixers, right?
Well, yes and no. In Detroit, it was a different situation because I started out when we were really small. Actually, it's an interesting comment that I'm about to say is that if I ask you to guess how many people you thought there were in our front office compared to, in your guys' world, how many would you say?
I would probably venture to say that when you started, there probably might have been only 50 full-time employees total.
Okay.
So I was going to go a little bit less than that based on the comment that he was making. You saying more front office or just technical staff too?
This actually would include technical staff, including
technical staff. Okay. I'm going to go 18.
We had 12, which is so, I mean, it's a pretty staggering number when you look at today where it's hundreds. I mean, hundreds every staff. I don't care if you're soccer or football, whatever you are. Some are maybe a little bit bigger, but they're big. But where it kind of leads to the answer to your question is because we were so small, we had our foot in virtually everything. And so one of the things that I was blessed with was an opportunity to get involved in so many things. And so, yes, at one point I oversaw season ticket sales in premium. Another point, then I also did corporate partnerships. But I always had my hand in a lot of different things like our TV negotiations, radio negotiations. When we built a palace, I was involved in that big time, what we were doing, just the whole process. So I was fortunate to come up through the ranks when we didn't have a lot of people. You looked left and you looked right and there wasn't anybody standing there. So, when you had a new jobs or new opportunities. But I think that's really a great chance for someone to grow, especially when you're young. It doesn't matter if you're young or old, but when you have the chance to get involved in a lot of different things and, the TV negotiations for rights fees and, just expand the mentality of what's in a franchise. I had some great experiences in that area. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was very fortunate that I was able to open up Lincoln Financial Field. So I was part of the transition between Veteran Stadium and the Link. And I always tell people that it's probably one of the most rewarding things I did in my career was opening up a new stadium or a new facility. But you only want to do it once. Yeah. And what was that like for you, Dan, when you opened up the Palace?
It was incredible because there wasn't a lot of. We moved from the Pontiac Silverdome, which is now demolished, and people, we made a bad situation into a great situation where we're drawing 5,000 fans, and did some different marketing things, and all of a sudden we're dry and a really improved product on the floor. Never to forget that is, we started drawing over 25,000. So you take a bad situation, you make it into a good situation. So, the growth of the Palace and just the whole, it's really regarded as the building that changed a lot of arenas because the way we looked at things, things that are taken for granted now, these things called LEDs. Well, in that era, LEDs were nowhere to be found. I mean, that was, what's that? So it's kind of interesting, that's one of the things that we changed and where we put suites 25 rows from the floor, which is unheard of in that era. And David Stern used to say, if you're building an arena, you need to go to Detroit to see the Palace, because they really changed the way arenas were built. And I don't take credit for that. My boss really was the one that had the lead on that. But it makes a difference, where you put the suites, the signage. We're just focused on revenue producing areas. And then obviously season tickets are critical. And not to be forgotten that we were fortunate at the time, we were knocking on the door for a world championship. So the year before we won, we lost in game 7 to the Lakers. And then our first year at the Palace, we won it for the first 2 years. So it's kind of a good way to start it off. And people tend to be a little bit more interested when you're winning to that level.
Yeah, incredible. That's an incredible way to open up a new arena, right? With the bad boys, the Piston bad boys, and just had a lot of momentum there in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, when you moved to Auburn Hills, you moved into the suburb of Detroit, right?
Well, we were already in the stepping stone was we used to play downtown Detroit at what was called Cobo Arena. And then we moved to the Pontiac Silverdome in 1978, and then played there for 10 years. And our lease was up, and our owners. So we had a situation, not a real good one, about my year 9 of the Silverdome, the roof fell in. So literally the roof fell in. So it kind of spurred our owner to think, this can't happen again. We're not letting this happen. I'm going to build my own place, and I'm going to put my own money, and I'm going to do it the right way. To his credit, he put the finances behind it. And then he got out of the way and said, you guys go find out and figure out how can we make this work? And we want to be successful financially, but you guys tell me how to do it. So he was really a hands-off owner, but was really a great businessman.
Well, so TJ, similar to Auburn Hills and the Palace, we take a look at the Union Stadium and the MLS's current model with building soccer-specific stadiums in neighboring cities to major cities. And so being in Chester, PA, what's that like in terms of just having that great facility at your disposal, and how is that a resource when you're attempting to monetize and sell tickets to different games and events?
Yeah, and it's cool hearing Dan talk about that, because I hear a lot of resemblances to the stadium that he was talking about in terms of modeling it, and then what I've seen around all of the other ones around today. Like for instance, like ours, we always talk about no matter where you sit in our stadium, because we do have one big bowl, you're always 26 rows away from the field, minimum kind of thing. So our suites sit right on top of those. So it's really neat to kind of hear that it was modeled after everything that you guys had going on over there at the Palace. But yeah, we're as you mentioned, JP, we are in Chester, PA. So it's a different sell essentially. And even then too, I will say Philadelphia sports are unlike every other sport in every other city, just because all the teams are right there in South Philly, where I know that that's not the case literally anywhere else. So it's a little different in that sense, just because people are used to going to one area for their sports. But at the same time, it's a little easier getting to our stadium just because they don't have to battle all the traffic that is involved with the city of Philadelphia. So I know that we do a lot more with people that are in Jersey, people that are in Delaware and whatnot, just because they don't have to fight all the city traffic on top of the traffic that would be going for the other sports teams as well. And something that we do that I know that a lot of other places don't as well too is, with people that have suites with us, we're 10 minutes away from the airport. And, what we offer people is to essentially kind of use our suites as their business areas, their places they can do meetings and whatnot. So I know we've got a client that is up in Newtown Square with their global headquarters, their national headquarters, but they bring people in from their global headquarters all the time. And instead of going all the way to Newtown Square, they just come right to the stadium and they're able to watch practice going on down on the field and whatnot while they have their business meeting up in their suite. So there's a lot of different aspects. that are involved with our stadium. And even then too, like, it's really cool to see how we've been kind of ingrained with the city of Chester through our foundation, through community efforts as well too, just to try and do as best we can to give back to the community that we're currently involved with.
Yeah, I gotta say that I would say that a current trend now is there's really been a renewed energy around the sport of soccer here in the United States. And I don't know if that's just because of technology and the access now to European and English Premier Soccer, but yeah, more people are talking about soccer. And I think it's an exciting time to be in the MLS. What are you hearing from people that are buying tickets or looking to come to games?
Yeah, so it's total 180 from the time when I first started. When I first started here, people were still going, that's the indoor football, team that's down. I'm like, no, that's the soul. But now it's really cool because you can literally talk with people and they go, yeah, no, like, we watch the Union games on TV. It's complete change. And I think a lot of it has to do, and I know I've read a lot of studies and whatnot, but it's more so involved with parents getting their kids involved with soccer more and more, to the point where the tri-state area here in PA, Jersey, and Delaware, as of 2017, had the third most kids in the nation playing soccer. And soccer did just pass baseball as the most played sport amongst youth in America as well too. And even then too, like, there was a big misconception long time ago that you would play soccer up until high school, and then after high school there's nothing to do with it. Whereas now, like, there is a major league involved with the sport, so there is aspirations for kids to continue playing as they go through school, go through college, and then hopefully go through the draft to get drafted to an MLS team, or go through the academies to then end up playing for the team as well too. Where when my parents were growing up, when their parents were growing up, it was more so like they played the sport, but it was something that they never got the chance to watch on TV, never had the chance to lison to on the radio and whatnot. So it's crazy to see, how the sport has just evolved in the 26 years that MLS has been around now.
And it also helps that the Union have been very good for the last couple of years.
That too, yes.
Winning the Supporter Shield and having just a great sort of nucleus of players now, both homegrown and international players. So to switch gears a little bit. All right, so Dan, you win 3 championships with the Pistons in your tenure, and then you get recruited to come over to Philadelphia during what we refer to here as the process years. So what was that like? Well, I mean, what was that like, and what were some of the challenges you faced? I mean, you're in a bigger city, bigger market, but at the same time, you have going into this is going to be a rebuild. And how did that affect your job and your role with the Sixers?
Well, it was a big challenge at the time. Doesn't mean it's bad. It was a big challenge. And, I kind of stepped back to where I lived previously. And, we had, as I mentioned before, we had some tough years. So you have to resort to that, so what are we trying to achieve? Because we can't do the numbers revenue wise that we were, like I was doing in Detroit. And, at the time we were doing 35, 40 million. So those numbers with the Sixers, I don't mean it critical, just were non-existent. So, and also you're dealing with a different set of circumstances, dealing with everything. Well, obviously with the playing at Wells Fargo, we don't control the signage and part of it for games, but a lot of the signage is not controlled by the team. So it's just what it is, it's kind of like you deal with a deck that was dealt you. And you have these certain things, you don't have these things. You do have a major market. That's a positive. I mean, there's a lot of people out there. Now you got to cultivate, and how do we develop those fans, but also how do we develop those corporate partnerships? I'm still a Sixers fan. I watch it, and a number of the people that I worked with that are still with them, I take great pride in that, because one of the things I believed was that you have to start at the bottom and grow from there. And if you don't do that to begin with, then you're going to basically, mess your franchise up. So we understood it was going to take time. The product just was not there on the floor, but what can we do? What can we set? And I'm sure this is no different than with the union years ago, how you started it out and set it up, and all of a sudden you had a client at X, and now all of a sudden they're spending Y because you treat him right. Your fans got bigger, your base got bigger, all the positive things that are going on. So I just think it's a growth. You have to learn how to accept growth and how to control the growth as much as you can.
Yeah, when and I tell the students all the time, for teams that play in venues where they're tenants in a building, they automatically have challenges because of the lack of revenue streams that, a team that owns their facility, like the union, incur all those other revenue streams, whether it be concessions, parking, merchandise. So Dan, tell me, so when you came here, how did you start to build those relationships with the situation or the hand that you were dealt? And how do you think outside the box in terms of developing a partnership that's good for the client, understanding that this is going to be a long-term deal and hopefully we'll grow this over time while the team gets better over, those period of years?
Well, the first thing I used to do was sit down with the clients, this is nothing, golden. Just try to listen, in which I think one of the mistakes that salespeople, and I'm one of them, make is that we want to sell them A, B, and C, whatever A, B, and C is, whether it's with the union, you have your set, the Sixers have their set, the Eagles have their set, or whatever A, B, and C, rather than stopping and saying, Mr. and Mrs. Client, what are you looking for? And trying to figure out, what do we have right now that can help you? It could be a demographic of an audience. It could be people are coming from certain areas, or I have no idea. But we tried to. I worked hard at listening to people, and that's not easy when you're being hammered about you need to bring in X amount of dollars, and it's a challenge. But you know what? I loved it, and that was. The bigger the challenge, the more I'm all in. I'm ready to do whatever they need me to do. So I think probably passing something on to somebody, the term listen is critical. And then I think the other thing is over delivering. So whatever we said we were going to do, we tried to do more. And not that this is any revolutionary thing, but some people don't look at it that way. Or some teams, okay, I gave you A, B, and C. Well, maybe you could give them D and make them even a little bit happier, or whatever it might. I'm not here to give anything away, don't get me wrong, but I'm also, next year they're not going to look. Bosses aren't going to look for the same number. They want a bigger number. So how can I, it's one of the things I take great pride. I did a presentation recently for some college kids, and I listed the 20 clients that I had in Detroit. And everyone started out less than $50,000. And everyone, this was a few years later, was spending over $500,000. So it goes to my point about listening. How can we grow? What else can I do for you? If it's a long-term approach, I think you really have a chance to succeed even more. If it's a one and out, then, basically good luck. I don't want to work in that situation.
And TJ, and I know with the union, you've got flexibility too, right? So when you're dealing with either an individual or a corporation that wants to get involved with the team, you have that ability, right, to be flexible and kind of fit the needs of what they're looking to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And, Dan, spot on. I love everything that you just said. One of the biggest things that I always tell people when I'm talking to them, I'm like, hey, perfectly fine, going through all this, but I want to make sure that we find something that makes sense. I don't want to push something on you that, you're going to be overspending, you're going to be upset or whatnot. Like, I want to find something that makes sense for you. And then we can always advance that as we do go along throughout the course of the years, because the way I look at it, it's not, like you said, like, it's not a 1-year thing. Like, I want us to build a relationship between either their brand, their company, and, you know, our team or our experience, depending on what exactly they're looking at. So that's the biggest thing. But I will say, like, when I first started with the union, I was definitely that guy that walked into a room and I went, I am going to sell every single person in this room. And I pitched my product on every single person. And for the most part, didn't really care about what I was hearing back. Unless they were like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. But completely changed that mindset entirely, just because I found out very quickly that you get shut down by every single person if you go in with that. But yeah, as you said, like, more so going in with the approach of listening to people, hearing what they're looking for, whether that be something with you, or even if there's a way that you can support them and introducing them to other people that you do know. So that's one of the big things that I found through networking, through all the different groups that I'm a part of. The more that you give, like, it's going to eventually come back to you. And that was evident with this past year, especially selling through the pandemic. I can speak from experience. Like, when sports shut down in 2020, like, no one was buying season tickets. No one was buying groups. Everybody wanted to stay inside. And don't get me wrong, like, I was one of those guys. Like, I didn't want to do anything outside of my house. But at the same time, like, Zoom became a thing, and it was very easy to meet with multiple people throughout the course of the day, and essentially just changing my habits and figuring out what can I best do to support you, as opposed to like, hey, like, do you want to come out to a game? But once things did open back up in June of 2021, it was really cool to see that all those relationships that I was able to build, all those relationships I was able to enhance because I was introducing them to people that I knew, came back to me and went, you know what, like, we're actually interested in doing something. We're tired of being inside or whatnot. And they came back to me, as opposed to going to some of the other sports teams, just because I was able to add that element on top of what I do. So it was really neat to see everything that I did over the past year and a half, or essentially over the past 3 years, kind of fruition into those relationships that I now consider friends as opposed to clients.
Yeah, I echo both your remarks. I always tell the story when I was selling luxury suites. My best client never bought one thing from me. And not because I didn't try to sell him something, and not because I didn't meet with him and present information, but I recognized that it wasn't the right fit and the right investment for them at the time, given the inventory that I was dealing with. And what I realized now in hindsight is what I established in terms of that trust and that friendship carried over, because then I got so much referrals, and I got secondary opportunities because I just was looked at as a friend or a consultant. I wasn't a salesperson. I wasn't trying to be, push you into buying something. I was trying to get you the right product that was going to fit your needs. And if I didn't have that, at least I was going to be honest with you. Now, I never wanted to tell my boss that. I never wanted to tell my boss, hey, I just met with this prospect. And
this isn't being published, right?
What's that?
This isn't being published, right?
Right. Well, I'm out of it now. It don't matter now. But I would never go like, oh yeah, I met with this big company, and yeah, I told them not to buy anything because it doesn't make sense. So TJ, you hit on something, and I think it's an important topic, as it relates to what we're dealing with today in terms of technology, and given that, COVID sort of changed a lot. How has technology impacted your role at the union, and how does it help you with when you're trying to meet clients or potential clients?
Yeah, so I will say it's so it started out with networking events. So I know a lot of different groups and whatnot switched everything entirely over to virtual. And with that, it was actually a lot easier to essentially meet every single person that was in the room, because everybody went around and gave their 30-second, 60-second elevator pitch. And it's like, oh, wow, like, that's a partner at a law firm. That's XYZ at Y company. And so it was really cool that you were able to essentially meet every single person that was in the room. Whereas at in-person networking events, more often than not, you're happy if you come away with 4 or 5 solid conversations and a couple of business cards. Whereas in this thing, you really got every single person's information. But even then, with the use of Zoom, with the use of like Teams, all these different video conferencing and whatnot, it's a lot easier for time management as well too, because I can sit down at my desk and I can go, okay, like I have a meeting in 5 minutes, as opposed to leaving 45 minutes ago to go to the person's location, have that meeting with them, wrap it up and whatnot, and then drive 45 minutes back to the office. So, there's some people that are still very old school, still want to do those in person, which, I'm all for as well too, because I'm a people person. But at the same time, it was nice to be able to have better use of my time, where I was able to do a lot more throughout the course of the day, while still doing meetings all throughout it as well.
Okay, great. So I'm going to switch gears. Dan, now looking back on your 38-year plus career in the NBA, what would you say is the most rewarding part of that?
Oh boy, that's a good question. There's different parts of it. When you go through and you win championships, I mean, I was so intimately involved in that whole thing, between the game presentation. I oversaw the parades. There's so many just like cool stuff. I just love the opportunity to grow with clients. I think that is so rewarding. And then people that work for me or under me that went on in to do some great things in their careers. I take great pride in that. I think that's just so awesome that, I remember when so-and-so was at this position doing this, and all of a sudden look at them now and how well they've done for themselves. That's tremendous. And also, I was a big and still am a big relationship guy. And I think, all business is built off of relationships. And I assume, you guys do a great job with the union. I'm sure, that's dead on the same situation. So I have to develop those, and I still keep in touch with a lot of those same people, and try to grow it. I'm not trying to sell me anything, but they become friends, and I think they became that because we produced for them, and we tried to make them look like stars too. If we succeed, we no different than both of you gentlemen in your careers, you wanted your clients to be successful. You wanted them to have a good situation working with your teams. And I think there's so many valuable, you feel so good about yourself, your team, but also you take great pride in maybe having a little bit of assistance in somebody else having some success.
TJ, what about you? What would you say is the most rewarding part right now working for the union?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Dan. Like, honestly, like hearing the feedback from the people that I work with and them saying, like, this is incredible. Like, you're the reason why, like, we like coming out. But at the same time, like, it's awesome going into the stands and seeing like a smile on a little kid's face who's like kind of like just experiencing the game for the first time. I know Dan touched on it earlier, but like doing stuff like that, like, it makes you feel like you don't have to work. Like, it makes you feel like, this is just natural. This is how I normally would be. So it honestly doesn't feel like I'm working at a job. It's more so just doing what I love.
Yeah, I would say now, stepping back, I've been out of professional sports now for, it's been almost 7 or 8 years now. And, I miss the game days, and I always say they were managed chaos, and there's nothing like a game day, because they're unpredictable. From everything from, you just never know what the issues are going to come up, to the weather, to traffic, to, it's just what can go wrong will go wrong at some point, and you just have to be prepared for those situations. But looking back on it now, going to games as a fan, I obviously love it, but there's nothing like that experience of being part of a game. And yes, you're not ever going to be on TV, and you're never going to get the recognition for a win, but you're a big part of the success of that organization. So Dan, what would you say now? What's the one thing you miss the most?
People.
people?
I really enjoyed the relationships I had with people, both clients as well as people that I worked with. Just that day-to-day camaraderie, trying to go towards a goal of obviously success on the court, but also, are the stands full? Are the suites full? Are the sponsorships full? All the different things that we have to sell, are they done? So there's a competitive part of me that I really miss that. And, how are we doing in this? Are we at X%? How much more? How are we going to get there? How are we going to? The competitor in me, I kind of miss that a lot. But I will also, you're talking about some experiences. Maybe I'm talking a little Detroitish, but this was really a national event. The Malice at the Palace. I don't know if both of you remember that one. One of the most horrific moments in sports in the history of our country, probably. And unfortunately, it happened at the place where I worked.
Yeah.
So to live through that whole experience, obviously there's no place in any of that in sport. I don't care what sport you're in, whatever it is, it can't happen. It did happen, unfortunately. But, when you talk about experiences, that's one that, I wish I never lived through, but I did live through.
Yeah, that's I watched that live. I remember I was out with friends and I watched that live. Like, we couldn't believe what was happening.
Neither could we.
That's an incredible. So for the students that are watching this, you're too young to remember that. I mean, again, I'm dating myself and a little bit, but watch the documentary that's on Netflix right now. It's an incredible story. And it's some of the behind the scenes footage and some of the things that actually transpired after that situation are pretty amazing. And yeah, that's got to be one of maybe the all-time unpredictable moments working in sports, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. The other to go with that is we lived through it before, and then it's like a disaster that you never ever want to see happen, especially if it's in your building with your fans. And I saw that documentary also, and I didn't like it, being totally honest with you. I thought it was extremely tainted towards Indiana. A lot of the things that were said in the documentary, and also the people that were interviewed on the Pistons side were not people that you would probably should be interviewing. So I thought that was really poorly done, but nonetheless, it's still about that there was a disaster happening that day and nothing good.
No, it was just a bad situation all around.
Absolutely right.
It impacted both organizations. It impacted the fans, impacted the players involved, and but yeah, I do agree with that. All right, so we're kind of butted up against it. I want to give some students an opportunity to ask some questions. So there is a chat box. If you have any questions, you can type a question and I'll ask it. Before I do that, so I'll ask both of you if what advice for a student looking to get into sports would you have?
Go ahead.
Go first with this one. Yeah. So I know in today's day and age, I know experience is a massive thing. So if you guys are young enough and you're able to, absolutely apply for internships. I know I talked about it, and I mean, I got my job out of my internship. Like Dan mentioned, he got his job out of his internship. So those two things are common through our experiences, and they are very, very separated by years and years and years. But I mean, that's one thing that remains true. Make sure that you're trying to put yourself out there, reach out to as many people as you possibly can, get yourself in contact and show value to these organizations, because that's what eventually comes back around. I can tell you right now that we have people that are in our office that were former interns as well, but it's more so because hey, he did X, Y, Z, and she was fantastic at doing this in their little time here. So, the little things that you do while you're able to, be present, show face and whatnot, it goes a long way.
First of all, I agree 100% with what you just said. The one thing I would add is that I think, allow yourself plenty of time to find an internship, because it's not there's not a line of people that are just saying, hey, we're looking for you right now. I think that's important. The other one that I have found a lot of times with young people is don't be afraid to go work for a minor league baseball team or minor league sport. God love the Sixers and the Union and all the other, but and they do take internships. I mean, but there might be some other opportunities at local baseball. And the thing I like about that is a lot of times you're able to do different things. You're not just focused on group sales or season ticket sales or premium, whatever it might be. You're able to see, oh, how's food and beverage run, or parking, how's that run, or just the overall operation of the facility. There's a lot of things I think we can learn that we're not even thinking of. It's not that somebody's doing something wrong, it's just they've never been exposed to it. And all of a sudden you see, boy, I really was kind of interested in that. That's kind of cool. I'd love to do that. Or, man, that's not my gig. Which, you know what, that's okay too. If you find something you don't like, it, you may be happier because you didn't pursue something for 5 years only to get there and you say, boy, I don't like that at all. So that's my point, is that I think minor league sports can be great proving grounds and also opportunities for young people.
I know we have 2 guys on our staff right now. One guy worked for the York Revolution and another worked for the Trenton Thunder. So 100%.
Yeah, I tell the students all the time, don't think of it just as the 4 or 5 major professional leagues. Look at the opportunities that exist around the area, because the reality is that, look, sales isn't for everybody. Yes, it may be the most common entry into the sports industry because you're always going to need revenue generators, but you also know right away that whether you're going to either enjoy it and thrive in that environment or you're going to hate it. And I do agree with both you guys' remarks that in minor league sports, you're asked to wear 4 or 5 different hats. You could be doing sales during the day. You could be a mascot during the game and cutting the grass after the game, right? Like you could be doing
absolutely
anything. So it would give you an opportunity to learn about all these different roles, and then really what are you good at and where do you really want to be? And then that becomes your focus. All right, so we have one question here I want to ask. So do you recommend applying for internships early as freshman year or wait until you're in your junior or senior year? What do you think?
I don't think you can have enough. I'll say honestly, like start applying when you're a freshman, because even then, like if you're able to spread your experiences out across different teams and whatnot, you'll very easily find exactly what you want to do. You'll find what you like, what you dislike, whether that be sales, whether that be marketing, whether that be corporate partnerships. Like you'll find through those different experiences, what it is you want to do. And if anything, it'll just put it more solidified in the back of your head. Like, hey, like this is what I want to aim for when I graduate.
I agree with everything you just said. Earlier, the better. More you can learn, the better off you are. You can have so many great experiences. The part that you didn't talk about is money. And we all love money. But I think to begin with, a young person has to realize I realize we got to survive. We need the bucks. But this isn't about money. It's about learning what I might want to do for the rest of my life. And, I started out, my first internship was $100 a week versus 10% commission when the ticket prices were 8, 7, 6, and 5. So,
you got paid?
Yeah. So, didn't make a lot of money, but it was really a stepping stone. And I think that's easy for me to say this, but someone could be out there and say, yeah, nice of you to say that. Well, you know what? I had no money, but that's okay because I found a career. That's really what you're looking for.
Yeah, and I can touch on that too. Like, I mean, I was serious when I asked if you got paid, because I know my internship, I did not get paid. So I had a part-time job afterwards because I was ticket intern from 8 in the morning to like noon, and then I was event operations intern from like noon to like 4 or 5, 6, whenever the event essentially ended. And then I went and worked part-time at Dick's Sporting Goods in the shoe department until closing time, pretty much every single day. And I lived in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. So that's 43 miles away from Chester. So then I'd go to sleep, I'd wake up at 6 and I'd drive back down the next day in a beat up pickup truck. But I will say, like, that's definitely something too. Like, you'll find out very quickly if you do want to work in sports, because one, my internship was unpaid. But I also got offered an internship as a financial advising assistant where they were going to pay me $4,000 for the entire summer. And as a college kid, I'm like, that's a lot of beer money. Like, I could very much run with this and whatnot. But I looked at the grand scheme of things and I was like, no, like my passion is with sports. If this is what it's going to take to essentially, put my name out there, put my name in front of people, especially in the industry that I wanted to be in, I was going to take that hit. And even then too, like, as I mentioned, like, I got hired out of my internship, but inside sales for me, that was $8 an hour. And I was calling on people who didn't even know who we were. So it is a grind. It definitely is something that you need to put the time and effort into. But after you get your feet under you, after you get the chance to learn your craft and perfect it is whatever it is that you guys decide to do, I promise it definitely is worth it.
Yeah, I always tell the story. So I graduated from college, an undergraduate degree, looking for a full-time job, and I went to my parents' house and I said, "Mom, I got good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear?" And she says, "Oh, the good news, of course." I said, "Mom, I just got hired full-time by the Eagles." She says, "Oh my God, that's incredible. What could be the bad news?" I said, "Mom, I'm making $5.75 an hour and I got to move back home." And she went, "Oh."
And I lived at home for the first 2 years of my career. So yeah, no shame.
And I was, maybe I was young and dumb and I didn't, but I did think, like, okay, this is my opportunity, right? This is my chance to break into the industry, prove my worth, work hard. And it worked out where the people that come in with that mindset that are willing to sacrifice the immediate are the ones that then get future opportunities and survive and have long careers. And I'm really, it's great hearing that from both of you because you've experienced this sort of the same thing.
I'm jealous Dan got paid.
I mean, to your point about moving home, I mean, I was originally from Wisconsin, so moving home wasn't an option if you're working in Michigan, but I rented a room. So nothing wrong with that. But still, the point is that if you think you're going to go to luxury living to begin with, it's probably not going to happen. In fact, I know it's not going to happen, but that's okay. We all need stepping stones to our careers. And what you were mentioning before about how you kind of jump from different spots. I mean, that's exactly an internship what it should do. That's fantastic.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up, guys. I really appreciate you guys joining us. I guess I'll ask one final question, and then, so what would you say is the one skill you need to be successful in the sports industry?
Good.
So I know the one thing that I like is the ability to be coached. So a lot of people, especially in today's day and age, like, think that they know everything. And, I get it. Like, everybody's got technology at their fingertips and whatnot. But the thing is that you need to be able to adapt to not only like the culture that you do go into, but at the same time, you need to be able to take what is presented to you and run with it. So you're not going to go into a place, and sometimes you might, but you're not going to go into a place and exactly like pick it up immediately and run with it. Whereas, you need to have the ability to sit down with supervisors, go through different scenarios. For me, it was more so like our sales pitch. I wanted to make sure that I was going to be able to be the best that I could be. So I could, have the sales pitch, but it sounds exactly like a conversation as opposed to a robot over the phone. So for me, it was more so like I wanted to make sure that I was able to take everything that I was learning and incorporate it onto the phone as opposed to making the same mistakes over and over and over again. Because I wanted to be the best person that I could be here with the team. So I would say the number one skill for me was to be able to be coached, but also show that I was taking the coaching and putting it into my craft.
I probably two things jump out at me that question. One is, which is somewhat similar to what you were just talking. I think it's critical to be a good teammate. And that word, I know in sports is used one way, but in business, I think, can you help your person you're working with on a presentation? Can you, listen to what they have to say? Can you listen to what the client has to say? And then the second thing that I would say is that don't ever forget, young people, and it applies to all of us, that ideas matter. And I think that you guys do a great job with the union. You do a lot of things, but I look back at how things have changed so much in sports with what we have to sell, what the various areas. And those are only because someone had an idea that, what, let's put a sign here. Let's, like in basketball now where they're putting him on the court, superimposing him on the court during games. And the great majority of the audience has no clue that that's what's really happening. They just think that there's a bunch of logos on the court. That, as we know, that's not the case. And no one's doing anything wrong. They're doing their job. They're trying to sell. But I think you have to keep looking for ideas. And what we see today, when I say, quote, what we see today is going to look different, no different than 10 years ago when you looked at a basketball court. I'm not an expert on a soccer field, so it's not ready to comment, but I know the basketball, how much it's changed. Now I watch a game and there's logos everywhere, and people are just doing their jobs. They're trying to generate revenue. But I think that ideas, and I'll give you a small one that I won't get into the couple of major things, but the small one when I first started that people have no idea, we sold our own radio time in Detroit and bought the time and sold it ourselves. And one day I walked in my boss's office and I said, I think we could really, if we changed selling 60-second spots to 30-second spots. Well, what are you talking about? Well, everybody sells 60, and this is years ago, 60-second spots. And I said, I think we should go to 30s, which is like revolutionary at the time. Well, I just doubled our inventory and we made millions of dollars because of that idea. So it's just simple ideas, but ideas still matter. It's no matter if it's, 2000 or 2021, it doesn't, it's no different. So anyways, I think ideas are critical.
All right, well, that's great. Guys, I really appreciate you guys giving up your time to talk today. I've enjoyed this session and really appreciate the insight. So thank you so much, and hopefully we'll be talking soon. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, JP.
Thank you.